Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for joining us today. It is our pleasure to present to you our project on the integration of parasports under FISU's current events and organizational offerings. Our report not only looked into the integration of parasports within FISU's sport and event programs, but also the larger societal, cultural, and logistical implications, of this potential merger. So as we look towards the future, and more specifically, as FISU looks towards the future, we believe these 5 core values are clearly represented in their motivation to evolve the delivery of their programs. And we hope that our report, which provides a comprehensive overview of the parasport landscape, including best practices and benchmarking of key parasport facilitators, because the International Paralympic Committee helps them achieve this goal. So our report looked to strategize the information pertaining to the gradual development of collegiate and parasport ecosystems, while also addressing the sort of multitude of concerns that were associated with this potential integration. One of which being that FISU's current age eligibility requirements state that any athlete taking part in their events must be between the ages of 17 and 25. But we also really wanted to identify if there was a population base that was prevalent enough to satisfy competition participation standards for FISU events, while also satisfying 2 key criteria. They had to be current collegiate student athletes, and they also have to be individuals with intellectual and/or physical impairments that would qualify them for participation in parasport. Now, we wanted to select sports that required minimal field of play modification from their para versions to their traditional versions to their para alternative event modalities. We also selected these key sports based on minimal impact of financial and organizational burden on the organizing committees and host cities. Now, the parasport ecosystem and landscape has seen significant consistent growth in the last 3 decades since the inception of the International Paralympic Committee. However, many challenges remain, being that athletes from developing countries often face a severe lack of resources and negative societal attitudes that can create barriers. And it is in light of these barriers that we believe it is imperative to raise the level of parasport, bring the level of parasport to all levels of parasport to the international level. And it is our hope that our project helps FISU achieve this goal. However, they are already doing so as part of their integration of para events in the next year's university games, being the 3x3 wheelchair events in the summer games and the para-alpine and cross-country skiing events in their winter games. Now, as part of our integration strategy, we identified several key industry benchmarks to ensure alignment with best practices within the parasport ecosystem, and you can see these here. My teammate, Alex, will now take you through our methodology in more detail.
To gain a comprehensive understanding of para-athletes and university student athletes populations, surveys are distributed to national university sports federations and national Paralympic committees. Prior to the survey, we selected a targeted parasports based on these criteria. First is FISU sports. We focus on IPC authorized parasports and disciplines that are already included in the FISU competitions. This eliminates the need for additional venue or modifications to existing facilities. Next is field of play transitions. It relates to level of transitions from FISU sports to a parasports. You will see a sports that requires minimal or no adjustments on the FOP, like a wheelchair basketball. Lastly, classification complexity of each parasports was also evaluated. Therefore, we had 22 targeted sports is selected. Surveys are sent to 165 NUSF through the FISU network. The purpose of this survey is to request their cooperation, sharing their para-athletes list, and questionnaire, gathering their opinions, including challenges. Surveys to NFCs are slightly different by requesting not only university student athletes, but middle school and high school athletes for their potential inclusion in the future game. These surveys are sent to 28 NPCs via email. Extended research was also conducted through public sources, such as websites of NPCs, NFs, university, as well as relevant news articles and even social media platforms to identify their student para-athletes. The NUSS responses are divided into two main categories: those who believe parasports should be integrated with traditional sports, and new approaches should be incorporated for parasports. Current parasports being held include boccia, goalball, as well as bowling, esports, and more. To incorporate parasports, some NUSF have implemented the Relax series, which allows para-athletes to showcase their skills in para-basketball during collegiate national championship. However, as an organizer, they anticipate challenges and concerns such as lack of participants and team management for integrations. Last but not least, numerous NUSF generously provide a wide range of insights and perspectives, such as strong partnership with IPC is needed and start integrating popular sports first. Unfortunately, only 4 NPCs answered the questionnaires due to their upcoming Paralympic Games, but all of them expressed their interest in holding parasports and disciplines in FISU competitions. For example, Italian Paralympic Committee shared that they organized student-focused competition in swimming, athletics, and alpine skiing. But a limited number of participants will be a big challenge for them, and they would like to see as many sports and disciplines as possible. So to wrap up, in total of 270 athletes data from 11 countries are collected through the survey.
Before the analysis, we did the second sports selection based on the 270 collected data and also the estimated popularity of each sport to illustrate the market size as well as the impact of implementing the sports. And through this process, we picked up 4 sports for further analysis. Athletics, over 70 athletes from 9 countries were identified. And we featured 2 standing class disciplines that have enough number of athletes by combining multiple classes. These class combined races were actually held in Birmingham 2022 and Trinbago 2023 with exact the same classes. And the universal relay is another type of proposal. By combining gender and the classes, it could provide more opportunities for more athletes to participate. Swimming has the largest pool of athletes, and many of them were identified in the classes with lighter impairment. The lightest class of the physical impairment category on the right end of the slide, it has the largest number and also a feasibility of all 4 disciplines. We also found a certain number of vision impairment athletes also in the lightest class of the category. And similar to athletics, the point relays in swimming also could also be another way of integration in swimming. Badminton, we featured men's SH6. It's a standing class for short stature. And the International Federation of Badminton, the BWF, governs both badminton and para-badminton. So the coordination for the integration, for integrating these sports could be simpler than the other sports. We don't go deep into wheelchair basketball as it is already planned to be integrated next summer. But while we identified over 30 athletes, we could also estimate that there are several times more athletes across the world, and which suggests the possibility of hosting 5-on-5 in the future. So to wrap up the analysis by sports, we were able to identify a sufficient number of athletes for sports within the FISU's current age bracket. And furthermore, the disciplines we proposed in our presentation in athletics, swimming, and badminton, they are basically standing classes, which normally don't require additional works in the venue to upgrade the accessibility, which is a big help for the host cities and the local organizing committees from operational and financial aspects.
FISU has already started has made the first step for integrating the para sports. So next year they're going to have the wheelchair basketball para wheelchair, and then 2 events for winter. So here we are today to talk about what are going to be the next steps, what to go forward with the integration. So we have the what we took in consideration were especially the transition to make it straightforward, the number of participants, and also we heard the stakeholders. And actually the NUSFs, they are willing to take part on it. But it was clear for us that there's a concern with the number of participants. And what we could see is that universities, they know about who are students, but not sure if they are athletes, especially with impairments. The NPC, they are aware about the numbers of para-athletes, but in NUSF, they know about the athletes, there are students, but there are no communication with these numbers. So this is something that we took into consideration. The challenges that we face are, of course, the operational challenges, also the number of participants, but the infrastructure for the para-athletes, and mainly the culture barriers that we know it goes across the world, because we are talking about an international event, and this is something that it's not balanced around the world. So this is a challenge. We use the Commonwealth as the main benchmark because they have been doing this since 2002. And they have been progressing with the integration of power sports. But I've been saying a lot about adding new sports for the World University Games, but this is not the only thing that FISU wants to do. It's important to say that we have 2 streams. The first stream is continue adding new sports for the university games. But FISU wants more. They want to really make a change, a difference in integrating the para-athletes. So we search, and there are many initiatives and strategies going around the world that can be used as benchmark to really make a difference for universities. And FISU can be the catalyst for that, using their position for that. So what we identified was the 6 main steps for the success. Making a collaboration with IPC. This is really important. Integrating it in a strategic way. Ensure the number of participants. Launch educational campaigns. Promote infrastructure development. And also address the operational challenges. To address all of that, we designed an implementation roadmap. We understand that it must be done in phases. So the first phase, we divided in tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and they're going to be different. The first one is very straightforward and cost effective. So what can be done immediately? After that, they can expand in a second moment. And the third moment, the tier 3, it's where they're going to bring innovations and really make a greater inclusion. So for the first, as I said, we have 2 streams. The first stream is focused on the games. And then we suggest para swimming and also the para athletics, because they are easy changes in the field of play, and they are very popular sports. And based on our research, there's a number of athletes. So that's where we understand they should start. Continue with the wheelchair, and of course, evaluating the success on 2025. And then based on that, maybe introducing already the 5-to-5 basketball and keeping the winter sports. The second stream is addressing all other points. So start with a MOU with an IPC. Creating a database, as I mentioned, it's difficult to understand the audience, the athletes. So creating a database between all of these entities, it's going to make it easier and create a pipeline and understand who are the para athletes. So promote the infrastructure development. Also, to ensure the participant levels, it's important to have. So we have a big list, and we understand that maybe it's not possible for FISU to address all of them at the first moment. So we have all of them, but if they're not possible to be addressed at the first moment, they can go to tier 2, because tier 2 is the moment to expand. So actually FISU will need to see, okay, what is possible, but we are mentioning the key ones, especially collaborating with FISU and IPC and creating the database. So after that, we are moving to tier 2, and then it's time to evaluate everything that was done. If it was successful, okay, are we in the right path? And then we have the sports that can be added at that moment. Like badminton, we didn't introduce it at the first moment. It's a potential, but we think it's better to go in the second tier. And everything else that was not done in tier 1 can be done in tier 2. It's a decision for FISU. And when we arrive to tier 3, we'll be able to come with new ideas, maybe create the mixed sports. So you're going to have opportunity to increase the numbers, and then, but at that time, they are going to have already experience on everything that was done before, and also think about integrating the depth, because this is something new. So we understand that that's the moment to really make a greater inclusion. With all the initiatives that can be done, like creating the forums and discussing and create awareness and promoting the universities around the world to support the para sport.
Thank you. In summary, our approach to integration is supported by several key findings that we found throughout our report, starting with the top sports for integration, which are para swimming and para athletics, which both require minimal field of play transition. Second of all, we strongly recommend the signing of an MOU between the IPC and FISU to further solidify this relationship. Third, our quantitative data suggests that A, there is a population base sufficient enough to host para university events, but also there should be no requirement to change the age eligibility, as the average age of para university students is 21.2 years of age. And lastly, we suggest a phased integration approach to help ensure a smooth transition from now to many users in the future. We thank you for your time today, and we look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you to the group. Thank you very much. We will now proceed with a session of question and answer. Traditionally, we allow the first question to the client. I don't know, Paolo, if you want to go first.
Thank you, Julian. Good morning. Guys, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for the study as well and for the last couple of months, the work that has been done with regards to parasport, which is obviously an important topic for FISU. And the fact that this study has been done is actually the reason why, one of the reasons why this is coming to the forefront in terms of what is our strategy. I had a question which was more specifically on the sports model. So your study was, you touched base on the Commonwealth model that was presented. Did you look into other models, or would there be other directions that you could suggest for further studies going forward?
Yes, we looked at many things, but we understand that the Commonwealth is the best one to be looking at. But there are some other small initiatives that are going around. We didn't mention, but it's good that you have mentioned that, because we have some. Oh, here there are some things going on. Some do not exactly goes to the same sports that you were. We know that ISF is already launching something for this year, and the sports they are going to help is the para athletes, para badminton, para judo, and para swimming, which aligns with the sports that we mentioned also. So, and this is something that it was, they are already having that this year. And what we know is that para athletics and para swimming is the ones that they have more athletes to, and they are still looking for more participants for para badminton and judo, which goes aligned exactly with our study, because we understand the swimming and the athletics, they are more popular and they have more para athletes. So this is good to reinforce. And I really think that ISF is a very good contact for FISU, because they, for the audience, it's the skill, they are not targeting universities, but skill. So if you can work together with ISF, they are going to be the future athletes for the FISU. So we understand that it's a really good to be looking at. We didn't add them at our report because they are still working on that. They haven't had the games yet. So it's still ongoing, but we really think it's something to look at.
Members of the jury, Professor Bale, please.
Thank you, Julien, and congratulations to the group. It is a good presentation and very good also work, written document. I will just start with the comment of Juan Carlos Lambrove, because unfortunately he's not with us, so I think he appreciated a lot your work, so congratulations for that. Just make a comment, you can react to this comment. I'm missing developments on how the MOU with IPC should look like. Accurate contents, potential pitfalls, potential sponsorship struggle between FISU and IPC, etc.
Yeah. We didn't develop a MOU for them. Actually, we know that FISU has already started conversations with them. So they are already, they don't have an MOU, but they have started. Because at the beginning, we did many conversations with FISU to understand where they are. And this is something that they are willing, but for now, it's not already defined, I mean, signed. So actually, what we understand is that they can, and we have it in the document, that they should have IPC helping them with the forums, with the workshops, and also with the database, and promoting them and bringing FISU to the Paralympic world, because for now they are in the non-impaired athletes. So having the help of IPC, they will have access to knowledge on that will help because they have forums that have happened during the World University Games. So it's important to give awareness about the para athletes. So I think that IPC will be key on that, because they do not have, FISU doesn't have this knowledge, and that's where IPC will come and help them to develop and help the inclusion. So, and I think it's a win-win for both, for FISU and IPC, because FISU is doing a great work of creating the inclusion, and that's what IPC wants also. They want to increase, especially for the para athletes, and so they are going to create an environment where the para athletes can make their careers and make sure that they have also a study and maybe some jobs after their career, because we know that athletes doesn't have a long career. So I think everything is aligned. So that's why it's a win-win. And then we went back to the IPC.
Okay, thank you. Maybe my comments. I enjoy reading your work because it's a very strategic topic for international federations in general and for FISU in particular, to have more inclusive events and not separated events, I would say. So it's a great news for the Olympic movement, this new tendency, and your implementation roadmap is very operational and I think very realistic. So it's a very good overview. I have one question, maybe it's more a general remark on your document, because you focus a lot on IPC and new national Paralympic committees. But you don't mention a lot the role of organization committee, because it's a key point also for FISU. And you don't mention also a pilot experience from traditional international federation and their link with national federation, or a new tendency for national Olympic committees. If we take the example of Switzerland, Swiss Olympics asked to the national sport federation to integrate parasport directly. So what kind of pilot experiences you have checked, because you mentioned I think Commonwealth Games, but
yes.
You can also have a look on international federation experience or some pilot countries experience, like I mentioned with Switzerland.
What happened is many of them are the federations. They are looking for a specific sport. So actually, we were looking more for something that has broader sports. But I totally agree that the federations are a very good example for them, especially if they decide to go to swimming and athletics, the way we suggested, and then we can.
Perhaps Gwen could speak to this.
Yes, yes.
So even for the Paris 2024 Paralympic Games, they had several events that were class combined. And then we are sure that before the competition, parties between IPC, of course, and then the international federations such as World Para Athletics, and then the organizing committee, and then the local one. Yes. Yeah. There must have been discussion which class to combine before the competition. And then for the World University Games, I believe for parties like FISU, IPC, the International Federation, and then the local organizing committee need to discuss which classes to combine from the in terms of not only the number of athletes, but also to ensure the performance level of the event. So yeah, I think those discussion will be essential before the games.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is there, Professor Deck?
If the client want to continue, otherwise I would, but
Go ahead, and I think they can bounce. I think Sanya might have a question after.
so, thank you for the presentation. Actually, the project is, I love this project. It's great. It's very timely, just after having watched the Paralympic Games these days.
Yeah.
So, and reading your report and I mean, looking at the presentation, it gives really good energy. So thank you very much for this. My points concern a little bit the financial aspect of the project. One point is you have discussed at the beginning regarding the consideration of minimizing financial impact, you said, probably in the selection, if I understood correctly, of the different disciplines, right? Can you elaborate a little bit more on this? So I understood it, but I really want to know how you go in depth into this point, because I may also have some additional argument to maybe I don't share it fully, but I want to see how you have understood exactly this point, please.
What happened is that if you have the Paralympic games, you're going to add many aspects of cost. So what we try to do is to focus in the lightest classes and the small changes in the field of play. So that's why the sport that we selected were athletics and swimming, because you're not going to add changes to the field of play. And also decreasing the complexity on classification. So that's what Koya was explaining about combining them. So you have a less number, and we are targeting the lightest classes. So because of that, the idea is to not increase the cost, because FISU is just the ones taking care of that. But the one that are really putting the money is the whole city.
Of course.
It's not the FISU, but it's not their interest to have something that it's going to be very expensive, because then the whole city won't have interest on doing that. So
let me say, I understood perfectly
Okay.
What you said, okay? And then therefore, let me elaborate a little bit more. That is, this approach could be perfect for tier 1. What about tier 3?
Okay, I agree with you, but this is going to be in long term. And that's why they will need to keep the studies, of course, because, and then they will need to understand how they can really incorporate others, because doing the first, they will have the first feeling, because they're already starting now with the 2025.
This part, see how you interpret the need of financial resources.
Yes.
I think could be elaborated a little bit more, because depending on the phases, you might need different amounts or anyway distributed differently and so on. This was the point I wanted to make. So.
But regarding what we mentioned about cost, because we mentioned also the sponsors, which are important to have, but FISU should be a catalyst to promoting changes in the infrastructure of the universities. And that's when, that's where it comes also the resources to finance and finding sponsors to that. So you can increase the infrastructure. And
if you are able really to start this competition level for university sport athletes, I'm pretty sure then you create a system of incentives for university to pursue in developing infrastructure, in developing equipment, and anyway support for them, for more participants again. Then I have a curiosity. I think it could be interesting. It's also for the client in this case, but what is the break even? So in terms of for the sport competition, for para sport competition, and also financially, then anyway should be linked. So the minimum number of athletes we can, as you said, a decent number, this is a good number. Okay, but what is the minimum number we need to look at to say, okay, from this moment on, yeah, it's worth it. Below, we don't have enough resources and to cover what we need. So I was thinking of, I mean, it's not an easy question. You might need to model and to find this point, but I think it's an interesting point. At the end, you need to identify this yes or no based on a treasure, right?
Yeah.
A threshold, sorry.
You need to be able at least to have an event going on. So if you're talking about wheelchair, and then you need more, some teams. You're not going to have a competition with only 2 teams. So you need at least 3 or 4 teams. So do you want to talk about the numbers?
It always depends on team, on the
Yeah.
disciplines.
Yeah.
I agree, yes. But I think it's a good point to develop this, right?
My perspective would be more the sports aspect of it,
Yeah,
not
of
necessarily a break even in terms of finance, because I don't think that's the reason why you're getting to recurrent.
I agree.
At least that's not it's our understanding, but that's the case now for Rhine in Germany. We have to have a minimum of teams playing basketball here too. So we will wheelchair basketball. So our struggling point there is, do we get 3 teams? Can we do a competition with 3 teams?
Yeah.
We have 10 teams, you know, like sometimes it could be the opposite as well, so.
And prior experience on this show anyway, some minimum numbers, right? Can also be helpful to give you some historical examples. I think this is a point that you could have added a little bit more specific. I think it gives to you a more, it could have given to you something more practical also for then evaluating decisions in that sense, you know. Not a qualitative information, which is reasonable, right? We all agree with this, but exactly what could be, you know, how many teams for this sport, how many athletes for the other sport.
Yeah.
I agree that the financial, in this case, for Paralympics, para competition is a little bit different. It's because typically you don't do it really for money, but still you need to look at your budget, right?
I think as the point is to create the events and create awareness. I think the number, it's quite easy. It needs to happen, the event.
You're
So the wheelchair basketball, okay,
You're
I understand that if they have 3, they can make a competition. But if they have 3 or 4 for a swimming,
Yeah.
they can have a competition.
But let me be a little bit provocative. You start with, I don't know, very small number of teams. But would you keep this if in 10 years it's still the very low number of teams? Question mark.
But that's where everything that we talked comes in place.
Bravo. I like it, right?
The idea is that FISU is working as a catalyst, and then they are going to improve and not
You know, when you
decrease
talk
the
about
number.
break-even, you not necessarily talk about the break-even in the short term, right? So in your plan, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you could have added something like, you know, at the beginning, we expect a very small number, but to make it really powerful in terms of also boosting a reputation, because at the end, that's what also is about.
Okay.
We need to reach a certain level of engagement, starting from athletes' participation, right? Okay. So having this been defined over time in your plan would be, in my opinion, very useful for the plan.
Thank you, Professor. Maybe a last question from
I have many things to say.
But I think it's good. they know where to find resource, like now, it shows that how implementable these projects are. Maybe last question to the client, Samir, maybe?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Guys, thank you so much for your work. It's been a pleasure working with you over the past couple of months. I think something Giovanni brought up is very relevant here, and I think it's related to participation in terms of the age eligibility. Of course, for FISU, it's 17 to 25-year-old for our able-bodied sports. With that being said, you mentioned the average age of a para-athlete is potentially 21.2, where the 0.2 comes from. But with that being said, one of the discussions that is always on the table, of course, to do with enough teams or enough athletes is modifying our age requirements for para sports. Obviously, we have our requirements, but maybe for para sports, we do something different in terms of modifying this age, the implementation of the age and the requirements. So I'm just wondering if that potentially, if you came across that in your research or suggestions, if that's something that could contribute to the increase in participation for para sports.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you were to extend that age range, you would see big jump in numbers of participation. But I think one of the main questions was initially is whether or not that was something FISU wanted to do. And so that was our primary concern and coming at, okay, can we actually get enough people to take part within this age range? And I think that's important to note that yes, you can. The exact numbers, do you remember, like, I don't know, there is a big jump. I think if you were to include maybe say between the ages of 28 and 30, you would, extend the top end of the scale a little bit. You would see a jump, right? But obviously that would be up to you and whether or not that would fit within your goals, right? So did you have anything to add?
Yes. So actually in our survey, we identified 17 overaged athletes, but none of them actually impacted our proposal. So from our study, we couldn't conclude that their age bracket modification could expand their participation.